Hey, I'm Natalie Potts, and this is the Natalie Potts podcast. If you want to talk about your business, your life, your health, and more, then you are in the right place. We do it all with humour, love, and inspiration to help you create a life you love. So, let's dive in.
How are you?
I'm really good, Natalie. How are you? Nice to see you.
And you, thank you. I'm really well. I was saying on the minute before, but I'm on a sales training day myself today, so it's a great opportunity to take a moment out, grab my coffee, and spend some time with you, who I call the sales queen.
Oh, thank you. I'll take that. Definitely, I like that. Yes. Yeah, amazing. No, I've been talking a lot. I was just finished a live with somebody else, and I was in somebody else's summit yesterday talking sales. So I've been here, there, and everywhere, and I've just finished a 10-day sales sprint.
Love it.
In my own audience. So yeah, there's been a lot of talking about sales in the last few days.
So I love talking sales, and I was that person when I started out my business going, I don't do sales, and because actually I just feared it.
Yeah.
And there was a big thing about rejection and fear and everything, and I'd love to break down with you a bit today on how we overcome some of those things to really help people.
Yeah.
And how we can make sales more natural, I think, opposed to being perceived as maybe like your Jordan Belforts or pushy and salesy. And I like some of his stuff and I don't like other parts, but how do we find our own personality in sales? I feel that'd be a great conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a lot of what I talk about. And I agree with you. And I think about these things a lot. You know, why are people struggling so much, especially small and solo business owners? Really smart, talented people who are really good at what they do, but they're absolutely struggling when it comes to sales. Now, I think for me, there are three key parts of the problem or the puzzle that need to be solved and put together. The first part, like you talk about, it's that fear of rejection, fear of putting yourself out there, fear of being perceived as like, oh, she's so full of herself, or who does she think she is, or she's not an expert. Like a lot of that is like our own mindset and confidence stuff. The confidence really to put yourself forward as the expert, to take up space in the world and to claim what you're good at. And I've definitely had struggles with that over the years. So it's not like a one and done. Like that is it feels like a continual piece of work. The second part, I think, is people have resistance because they're like, well, I just don't want to be pushy. I don't want to sell like that. You know, they'll give an example of somebody that they think is a sleazy salesperson, or they'll think about, you know, I'm old enough that I grew up in the 80s, and I remember like the double glazing people that used to phone your house,
yeah.
like wouldn't, like you had to like put the phone down because they wouldn't stop talking. They don't want to do that, like pushy, sell. Or like they're not like a massive extrovert personality. So the idea of thinking, oh, to sell you have to be like really loud and high energy, like I can't do that. So they tell themselves a lot of stories about how they don't want to sell because that's not their natural style. And then the thing is, even if you overcome that first bit, the sort of fear and internal mindset stuff, the second bit, like the misconception that you have to be super extrovert, super high energy, super pushy, super aggressive to sell, even if you overcome and work through those bits, the third and final piece of the puzzle is like, what do I actually do? Like what is selling? Because genuinely, like people don't know. And to me, it's so wild that, and I speak to people who are doing really complex things in their business. I speak to people who have actually set up some really complex like marketing systems. They've got lead magnets, they've got sales funnels, they've got complicated kind of content plans and pillars. But I'm like, well, what are you doing to convert those leads? And they're like, what?
Right.
Like, there's not even a realization that there's that piece is missing, the sales piece. So it's actually teaching like the really simple steps, because for me, there's marketing and there's sales. So your marketing is all about your positioning, your message, your visibility. It's like how you're going to attract your leads in. And then your sales is how you're going to convert those leads into sales.
Yeah.
You need both sides of the coin to be together. And if you're only marketing, you're doing a lot of work for like, you're missing out on so much opportunity. But equally, if you only sold without doing any marketing, that's going to be really hard to scale. So you need both parts kind of working in tandem. And I think over the last few years, it's almost like sales is like this, like it right to say a dirty word? I don't know, but
Yeah.
people are like, I don't like selling. I'm not good at selling. I hate sales. Sales is awkward. I don't want to sell. And it's almost like, well, we'll just invest more and more and more time and effort in our marketing. But that's all your top of funnel stuff. And if you don't have a process that takes people through from the top of your funnel to the point where they're going to buy and become your client, it's so much work and so much effort. And that's the bit I think where people get really despondent, because they're like, I'm doing all the things. I've invested all the time. I've invested all the money. I'm learning about marketing, but I'm still not making enough sales. And that's when they start to doubt themselves. And it's all that, like, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm not cut out to be a business owner. I'm in a place of struggle. Oh, I'll tell you, maybe I'll just like have a flash sale and I'll like reduce my prices. If nobody's buying at this price, they're probably not going to buy at that price either. It's about creating that process that feels really seamless for the client and for you to take them through attraction, engagement, nurture, offer, convert. And I think people are just not doing enough of that. So for me, I'm all on the mission to like, one, like just take that confident step, claim your space, say you're an expert, talk confidently about what you do and how you can help people. Two, realize that you do not have to be like some pushy, mad, crazy extrovert dancing on a stage and like not letting people get off the phone until you've closed them down. Like, I'm almost the polar opposite of that. Like, I'm quite shy. I'm an introvert. I would get really nervous at the thought of being on a stage. I have done it, but it's not like my natural habitat. Also, I'm like the anti-pushy sales. Like, everything that's pushy, I just don't do it, and I don't teach it either. It's all permission based, and it all feels good for me, and it feels good for my clients. So it's getting people through that confidence piece, the realization that you can sell on your own terms, and the more of you and your authentic personality, your values, your ethos you put in your sales process, the more successful it's going to be. And then the third piece is like, that's almost the easy bit. Like, these are the simple action steps that you take to actually put a sales process in place. This is how you increase your sales, and this is how you've done all this work bringing these marketing people in, leads in, just to like post once about an offer on Facebook and then be like, oh, nobody bought. Well, that's because you're not selling it. So let's get those sales steps in place. So that was a really long answer about like, why are people scared of sales? But for me, it's those three distinct problems, and everybody will have some element of all of them, and it's just like working through each stage with them to help, I think.
How much do you think people sometimes pull on their mindset part, though, opposed to just trying to work on it and embrace it and use it as their driving force around getting better as such? Because I've noticed a real focus in doing practice, and it's literally can be all in my head, but the minute I do practice, it feels clunky at the start, but over time it builds and it gets more natural. And that's what I'm really trying to focus on always, is make it more natural, and that I direct people, but it's for them to make an informed decision with the information that I've given them, and then they make the decision that's right for them.
Yeah, 100%. And that's it. Like, I just, there's so many misconceptions about sales. Like, oh, like, you know, if you think of a sales coach, I'm never going to give you a script to use on a discovery call. I'm never going to tell you how to, like, oh, you know, like, let's get you 100 discovery calls. And I don't teach like that. And I don't teach like handling objections in that way, where you try, you know, if somebody says, I want to think about it, if somebody says to me, I can't afford it, or that doesn't feel like the right investment for me at that time, for me, you need to respect that decision, and you need to be like, okay, that's fine, because you're an adult. I don't want to be like forcing people through my sales process, dragging people through. And I hear like a lot of people talking about, I've had really high refunds, or I've had like real dropouts, or people who make one payment and then drop off. To me, that's a red flag, because that makes me think that you are pushing people into your program. Yeah, maybe don't want to be there. They make the one payment maybe because you kind of closed them down on the phone, or they felt really awkward, but then they're like, shit, I can't afford this, or I don't want this, or it's not the right fit, it's not what I need. I'm going to cancel my direct debit, or I'm going to ask for a refund. I'm going to drop out of this program. You want to want people to work with you, and I'm not saying like be totally passive about that. There's so much that you can do up front to kind of handle objections before they've even become an issue, and also to qualify people before you get them on the phone, so that when you're talking to them, you know that like you're not really trying to sell at that stage. They've already got all the information. I think what you're trying to do at that stage is more sort out the formalities, answer any questions, and see if it feels like a good fit to work together. And, oh, here are the next steps. And if not, no worries. Is there something else that we can do together? Or actually, is it just not a good fit at all? But if your process is right and your qualifications right and your your content that informs and your marketing and your messaging, you shouldn't really be getting people that get to an end of a call and be like, oh, I just don't want to do this. Because by the time people get on a call with you, they should know wholeheartedly that they want to do it. And I feel really strongly about that. So I used to work in recruitment. That's how I sort of first started to work in sales. And basically we used to move sort of real kind of senior medical professionals, senior doctors, consultants, hospital CEOs, but we used to move them around the world. And that was like, they would move from the UK to Australia or to Dubai or to Canada. So lots of like big personalities, big jobs, big money. We didn't get paid until that person had already started in their job and had lasted there for a month. Right, some 6 months would be like a quick sales process. Sometimes it was 12 or 18 months for these people to negotiate everything. It was absolutely never in my interest to push people into jobs unless they were like, I'm 110% sure that I want this, because otherwise I'm doing 2 years of work for like, I get to write maybe 100k invoice, but then I'm going to have to refund it because the client was like, oh, actually, I don't want to get on that plane after all. I've just accepted a job with my friend from school. I'm like, oh. And I learned the hard way about that. And I saw my team learn the hard way about that. And that whole thing about qualifying people and not pushing people into decisions that are not right, that is so applicable to what I do now. Like I could easily, but I could be a lot more forceful on calls.
Yeah.
But I know then that what's the point? You're going to get people who are like, oh, I'll pay one payment and then I'll drop out, or I'll ask to release, or I'll go into the program, but then I'll really resent it and I'll say that you missold it to me. Like, I really want to work with people who want to work with me. So it's about building those kinds of practices into your sales process. And I much less think about selling as being push and close and force. For me, sales should be like attract, ease, flow. Like, that's how I want people to feel, because I know how I like to be sold to, and I know how I like to buy. And like, I know if I want something or if I don't, and really no matter how much you push me on the call, that's not going to change that. And I think that's true for the clients I want to work with as well. So I want to be having people who've made that kind of rational decision.
Yeah, it's so important. And like you say, the qualification is a big part, mate. And I think it's about, I always think about how it's the right fit for both of you and building that relationship. And seeking to understand as well. And that's where, I'm focusing a lot more on business strategy now. But my foundations are coaching and things. So I use that skill set. And I think that the education part that we have, and educating yourself more on sales, what it is and what it isn't, and how you want to show up in your business with sales and what you want to be known for, is some of the slowing it down to think about the bigger picture of the business. And also how, like you shared there, the impact it has bigger than the person you're talking to directly in terms of referrals and everything about the experience they have with you and how it felt is so important. And like you said, they're not pushing somebody into making a decision that's not right for them. I say sometimes it's a little bit like I'm doing a bit of an audition, in terms of I just want to see where your head is at, what you're really wanting, what success looks like to you, and then if it's the right fit for us to work together and explore that, opposed to it being that I'm going to ramble on at them and say this is right for you, or it's not and it's this or that as such. I do want to have a bit of a, I know I prefer sitting with look, is it a yes or a no for now? Because like maybes just don't give me much. Let's just be transparent and adult about it. But I also don't want it to be that it's black and white with that as well. I want people to think that actually I'm not sure at the minute. It sounds great, it's good, let me just stay in your world. Or they'll say it's never for me, I'm out. And I'm happy with either. And I want to make sure that I'm always getting that across in how I'm articulating myself. And I think that takes time. It's definitely, you've got to, again, in your business, think about what it means to you, and then slowly bring that in with, like you said, who you're attracting, and see what works and doesn't work.
Yeah, I think that's right. And it's about like detaching the emotion from it. And you know, if somebody says no, that's okay.
Yeah.
Like obviously say yes, like that never gets old, and it doesn't matter if you're joining my membership at £47 a month or if you're signing up to work with me one-to-one for a year. Like I'm going to celebrate that, and I'm going to feel good when you say yes, because I know that I want to work with you, and you know I can help you. But equally, if somebody says no, that doesn't drive me to think, oh my God, what did I do wrong? Like, oh, this business, you know, I'm going to fail at everything I ever do. Nobody will work with me. It's almost just like you're just having the conversations, and it's like taking the emotion out of that. Like I talk as well about when we do pricing, that's a really emotional. I think when you're talking about sales and about pricing, take the emotion out of it and just think about it as like a logical part of your business, in the same way as like you're doing your VAT return or you're doing the SEO on your website. It's just a process. And yeah, you're right. You want to sort people into yes, a no, maybe, but maybe in the future, not now. And you kind of want to be moving people. I always, like, I have a leads list that I work from, and I always want to be, my whole thing is like filling that up with fresh people and moving people either green they've bought, red they're definite no's, or like moving them to some point in the future for follow-up. And that should be like a dynamic moving document that changes every day, because new people are flowing in, new leads, and people are either buying or they're opting out. And I think what a lot of people are doing is they're bringing in all these leads, but then they're not getting them sorted into, because they're too scared to ask for the sale, or they're too scared to follow up because they don't want to appear pushy. And for me, it's just about, like, if you think about, like, I love being sold to. If it's something I want or something I'm interested in, like, tell me how I can work with you. Tell me what you've got for me. Tell me how your products or services are going to make me happier, healthier, wealthier, make my life better in some way. And I think that we almost business owners hold, or some business owners hold themselves back so much that they're like underserving people that they could help, because they're not really exploring how they could help people. So no, I'm totally all for asking for the sale, but like you say, you don't want them hanging about for ages. You kind of want to be like yes, no, or maybe, and any of those outcomes is totally fine, because you know, in the world of probability and statistics, you're never going to convert 100% of your leads. So you're always going to get some no's, and just detach the emotion from that. Like if somebody says no to me, I think, oh, that's a shame, because like, you know, I feel like I really helped you. I know that I could have got you results, but if that's not right for you just now, that's okay, because I know it might be right for the next person or the next again person that I speak to. And just being able to kind of remove that emotion, I think that's really helpful. And to recognise, like you say, that a no now doesn't mean it's no forever. So you sort of want to like always leave that door open. And it's really interesting. I tracked, you know, like calls and things that I had and how many people bought at that point. And this is about 2 years ago, and I remember thinking, wow, that's a really low conversion rate. Like, what am I doing wrong? But then I looked at it again in 6 months, and the conversion rate had gone from something like 30% to like 95%. So those people had all come back and bought, but they'd done it like at their own pace. And I think for retention, satisfaction, all that stuff, like giving people the space to make the decisions in a way that's appropriate for them, I think that feels really good.
And I used to be, when I started out, I was like, that's it, off the list. But that was more about me, and it's not cool. It doesn't need to happen. And like I said, you have to remember, people say, again, the jargon of words, but a lead is a human being. It's a person. Like you say, it's having a conversation, and it's doing it with your personality, making it natural, and then just seeing what can happen. And I like to always think of the art of the possible with things too. I said, you'll know right or wrong in your business whether stuff is a dead no. I said, you trust your intuition on some things, but I said, you can leave stuff on the art of the possible, but always be, and I guess this is where I find it works well, being very direct communicator, that transparency of people. Sometimes people don't like it, and that's going to be a fact, but most of the time people like the honesty. And the same as when I used to work in corporates, and I say, if it's a no, I'm going to tell you why it's a no, but we're going to grow on it still. And I think that part of, again, building a relationship with somebody transpires into more, and then it might just be that it's a no for now, and they'll continue to be in your world and things. It just was a timing thing as well, and we all know that there'll be times in our business where it's just like, it's just not right now. But I don't want you to give me that kind of it's this or that, because that's not going to help me.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And like one of the things that I really want people to think about when they think about the sales process and the customer journey, it is a journey from like when they become aware of you to they become interested to they create some sort of desire to there's an offer made to they either accept or reject that offer to then the follow up. But like it's a relationship. So for me, selling is based on building really positive relationships with people. And that's not something, it's not just one specific moment in time when I'm like, buy this thing, click this link, book now. Thanks for being in my challenge. Are you going to buy my program? It's not just that one moment for me. I'm like, well, that person's in my world and I know that at some point they're very likely to buy something. And I need to be that person who maintains the relationship, who does the follow up, who has that person there, who has that person around and has the right offer with the right message and the right price point at the time that is right for them to buy. And that kind of sounds really, that sounds calculated, but it's not. It's just like, for me, when I think about my personality, like I'm a connector, worked for a long time, like 16 or 17 years in recruitment, bringing people together, building teams, building community. And that, like, that's how I've always grown my business, by bringing people sort of into my world, connecting people, connecting with people. So it becomes really natural for people to buy from you because they know you, they like you, they trust you.
Yeah.
Generosity is one of the core values of my business. So it's like you give value, you help, you support, you encourage people. And it, you know, it just becomes like, of course they're going to buy from you. Just because they didn't buy that one thing at that one specific moment doesn't mean that they're never going to buy. So I think it's about learning to sell in a way that feels really good for you. So for me, that sort of relationship based, having people there for the long term, delivering really high quality stuff so that people stay with you, recommend you, like you, being generous, knowing that at some point, you know, it's very likely that that person will become your client. Like that works really well, as opposed to me just thinking, right, I want to do like, I don't know, 30 discovery calls this week, all with cold people, and I'm just going to like batter through my script and I'm going to push them all into this like program. I just would hate like that. You know, when people DM you, they're like, oh, what if we could fill your diary with 100 prospects a week? I'm like, no, that's my worst nightmare. Like, it's much ever for me. So yeah,
it's it's very true, isn't it? And I guess it's interesting. It goes back to the relationship part all the time with people, and building it. And yeah, it's interesting to think about, and knowing that you've got to invest in the people that you've got. I see a lot of sometimes some clients and businesses out there, and I'm like, what's your referrals look like, and what's your retention with people? Because again, you can go for the next sale, and you know that's all your focus on target wise. But if you're not looking and delivering with what you got and offering value and continuing to build the relationship even more, I said, then you're going to make it that part where you said at the start, the sales marketing part. That's just 10 times higher. You're harder. You're constantly, your bandwidth is so hard because you're just like ping ponging between the two. And one minute you'll find in your business, and like you say, it's like I always think about, you know, working for the next 90 days of such plus and working in relationships, because people need to do the know, like and trust. So invest in just being on someone's journey, listen to what they need and want, and not forgetting to continuously deliver an experience to somebody as well is so important. Otherwise you can be chasing the wrong things, and then that's where you see all this in business all the time. There's no consistency, and consistency builds credibility.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, you know what, there's a famous quote about people will not always remember what you said or what you did, but they will always remember how you made them feel.
Yeah,
like that is one of the
I've said that 5 times this week.
Top pillar of my business. You know, I need to think about how I want people to feel, and that is really important. I think to put that into my business. You know, and if I used to say I've been 20 years in sales. I'm older than I thought. I've now reached the point where I'm like, 25 years working in sales, and I've worked in like hardcore sales environments. You know, like I worked in high street agency recruitment when I was 21. Co-founded another recruitment agency, worked in online coaching and strategy space. Like some of these industries are not known for their ethical selling practices, you know. So but I think I have never sold in a way that's felt uncomfortable for me ever. And I remember at the very beginning when I was like 21 or 22, people saying to me, oh, you're too nice to be in sales, you're too honest. I was like, how can you be too nice and how can you be too honest? Like, people want to work with me because I'm nice and because I'm honest. And I've kind of never lost that. And it was really quite satisfying to like really see my career in recruitment go like this, as always, like, you know, top biller, award winner, this person, managing director. You know, it was quite an ascension, and it was amazing to see that and think, well, yeah, I did it by being too nice, too kind, too honest. Like, I mean, what sort of industry tells you you're too nice and too honest to be successful? But actually, like, I really believe that you can build your business on whatever your ethos and values are. And I think that that's so important for people. And I think as well, the other fundamental truth about selling is that it's so human. Like, for me, selling is just about starting conversations with people. It's about listening to people, and it's about identifying opportunities as to how you can help and support that person to make their life happier, healthier, wealthier, better. And actually, I think most entrepreneurs, instead of chasing, like, you know, something really complicated, the next shiny object, the secret, the silver bullet, the sales funnel, or the ads that's going to convert everything, like, they're all nice to have, but you have to build that on a foundation of just being able to talk about what you do in a way that's compelling. And that's been so eye-opening for me over the last year or two, how hard a lot of business owners find it just to have that initial conversation, just to talk about what they do, just to make an offer in a way that feels natural. We're like, oh, that's too hard, I'll like invest thousands in this course, or I'll have this funnel built, or I'll do that. And like, well, that's okay, but you just need to learn how to talk to people in a way that's compelling and convincing.
And that's why I'll say, like, yes, marketing has its place, and we spoke about that side, and it does. But I said, but if you're not getting genuine connections every single day, you've got nobody to talk to and build your audience. You need to build your audience, and you need to build that know, like, and trust, which takes time. And like you said, you have to think about how you buy and the behaviours around that with other people. And there's no point having I see people like, oh, I've just done my website and I spent this on a logo, and I'm like, amazing, how many people are in your world? And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, how many people are you talking to about what you do? And they're like, oh no, yeah, I've got to start that. And it's like, no, like, that's the first thing, is just the people side is the critical part, is what you bring to your business. So yeah, it's incredible. It's so interesting. I love it. I really do. So there have been two people I'm listening to at the moment, and it's interesting you said about the sales and the marketing. I'm listening to Dan Kennedy's book on magnetic marketing at the moment. I'm also listening to Brian Tracy's The Psychology of Selling, which are amazing, loving them. Who have been kind of your inspirational people when it comes to sales?
Do you know, there's a book that I really like, and I only read it quite recently. Can you see it? To Sell is Human.
Daniel Payne.
Yeah, I love that.
I need to have a look at that.
Yeah, so I mean, and you know, even just the title sort of really encapsulates everything that I believe about selling is human, and it is just about relationships. Also, I think that one of the other things that's really inspired me, maybe this is negative, but it's watching people sell in a way that I think, oh, that's awful. Like, oh God, why is nobody stopping these people from doing this? And being like, I need to be the polar opposite of that. You know, like that sort of like gaslighty selling. Well, like, I mean, if you're serious about your business, or you're serious about your personal development, or if you're serious about your weight loss, and you can't even find £1,000, I mean, what sort of a joke of a human are you? You know, like that sort of stuff. And like, it's awful. And I see it and I'm like, oh, that is gross. But I also see all these other people, all these business owners who don't have a sales background, who are like, oh, if I want to sell, I have to be like that guy. So just stop. They're just paralyzed. And like, for me, that was my inspiration, because when I first left behind recruitment, it was after I had my kids. I didn't want to travel, so cashed out of that business. And I'd set up like doing it wasn't specifically sales, it was like general business coaching for small businesses. And then I was like, no, these guys don't need like this general, they actually really need the sales. It's because I realized that was like the part that was so missing, and that was what everybody needed. So I think what's really inspiring is like actually when you see people who think, well, I can't get those results, but then they follow the steps and then they surprise themselves with their own. They're like, oh, I just made sales. Like, why is this so easy? I'm like, well, it's easy because you're following the steps and you're doing the right things and you're doing them consistently. Because we shouldn't think about, oh, I'm not good at sales, like in the same way, like I've got blue eyes or I've got brown eyes, or I can roll my tongue or I can't. It's not like we're genetically predisposition to be good at sales or not. Like you can learn it in the same way that you can learn to cook a recipe or drive a car or do your VAT return, whatever it is. It's just a process, and we need to, like, I think, remove a lot of that like mystique, mindset stuff, emotion, positive and negative stuff around it. Like, just think about it as a process. It's a key to your business. And like for me, it's the number one thing that you should be doing. So anybody who's like, oh, I need to get my website sorted out first, or I want to get this qualification, or I want to finish this course, I'm like, well, that's okay, but in your head that is also, like, whether you recognize it or not, I know that you're procrastinating because sales is the thing that's hard. It's like the easiest thing, but it's also the thing that feels hardest. Like, oh, I'll do all these other things and then maybe I'll feel ready. But the truth is, like, we're probably never going to feel ready until we step out there and actually do the thing. And actually the only way that we can build confidence is by taking courageous action when we're stuck, or when we don't feel scared. Like when we do feel scared, you know, I feel scared all the time before I do new things in my business, but I have trained myself to respond in a way that I'm like, is this a good decision for me? Is it a good decision for my business? Yes, take this action. And then you do it scared, and then afterwards you're like, oh, that was awesome, I want to do more of that. You know, it's just
and it's funny because it all, like, the dots just connect when you can be in these worlds, and I love talking to people. You're in the same mastermind as me, and when you talk to people about business who get it as well, it's just such a rich conversation. And the challenge I'm running this week, we spoke about a couple of those things already around, again, like I said, stand for what you stand for. I worked in corporate for many years and I saw some bad leadership. I saw some great leadership, but I also used to then say, I want to be a bit like that. I do not want to be like that. And that inspired me and empowered me to then show up of who I wanted to be. And you've also then, that helps you with your values in life, you know, personal and business, and to stand by those. And they're so important that you have those. You shared yours earlier, but also about the part around, you just have to get started. I've been doing all the pre-launch and everything, and then to do it gets closer and closer. I was like, and I'm pretty confident, but I was like flipping it. I was like, I'm a little bit nervous. I was like, why am I bricking it? What's going on? And then you're right. I said to them on the first day, I was like, it's the courage to show up here. So you might not be confident, but you've taken the courage and you're showing up and you're giving it a go. And I'm only learning stuff, what works and doesn't, by doing it. And I've learned that this worked well on day one and this was awful on day two, but this I'm going to do on day three. You just got to get going in order to really know what it feels like and what works and doesn't work. And actually sometimes what works won't work again the next time. We live in that world where we've got to be agile and adaptable, and you've got to go with that. So that's where the mindset part's so important.
Exactly. And I remember reading, it was Mel Robbins, the 5-second rule, which is like when I first came out of recruitment and I had like a tiny baby and a toddler, and I was like, what the hell, like, what am I doing? And it was like your body's response to fear is the same as your body's response to excitement. Physiologically, it's the same stuff that happens. So just like when you feel that, like, I'm going to be sick, I'm so nervous, just be like, this is amazing, I'm so excited that I get to do this. And like, it's almost natural now. It takes a lot for me to get that sick fear and like, I'm going to be sick because I'm so scared feeling. But everything I did, I was like retraining myself, like, oh, I'm just so excited that today I'm going to go and do this talk, or today I'm going to sell this thing, or I'm going to show up and do this. And yeah, it's your brain is a funny thing, the way that it's so hardwired to keep you safe and keep you small. But safe and small for most of us in this world, most entrepreneurs, safe and small gets pretty dull pretty quickly. So you're constantly trying to like fight through that reptile part of your brain that's keeping you here to say, no, I want to be there, let me go.
It's incredible. Look, I could talk for hours, and I can't wait to see you in New York next month.
I know.
We can talk for hours then. Thank you so much for your time. Where can people connect with you?
Instagram, come and find me on Instagram. I'm Anna Payne Sales on Instagram, and I've got loads of like free training that's linked to my bio if you want some help with your sales and how to get started. So yeah, come and find me over on Instagram. And yes, I'll see you in New York. How exciting is it to say that?
I know. I'm very, very excited.
Right.
Thank you so much. Have an amazing day, lovely.
Take care. Bye.
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 Thank you so much for listening. Are you looking to grow your business and tired of not seeing consistent results? Head to the show notes right now and check out my quiz to discover the one thing holding you back from growing your business with ease. Business should really not be complicated. I'll see you on the next episode.